right, welcome everyone. So, I was fairly certain that I could win a Child of the Year award if only they didn't consult with my mother about me. See, no matter how great I was doing at school, and believe me, I was crushing the third grade, and how patient I was with my little brother who wanted to spend every waking moment with me, my mother would manage to find these little nitpicky things that I did wrong, and it made her unhappy, and so she would voice this by yelling at me, even though I do not respond well to negative reinforcement. So, for example, she would yell at me for jumping on the bed. She would yell at me for playing in the woods, which technically she had made off limits because she believed that only bad things happened in the woods instead of magical things. And she even yelled at me for the time that I borrowed some of her stuff, just temporarily, her dress, her high heels, her makeup, her long red-haired wig, to dress up my little brother and take him around the neighborhood and introduce him as my cousin from out of town, Lolita Chanchita. So it was one of these days when she was yelling at me. I was in my bedroom, and she had come in to yell at me for not making my bed in the morning. It went something like this: I could train a monkey to make her bed every morning. Why is it such a problem for you? I said, well, maybe a monkey is unaware of the pointlessness of making the bed in the morning because you're just going to mess it up at night. How dare you talk back to me? But why is that a crime? Isn't talking back just like responding to people? Is that bad? Don't you want me to respond? You're making it worse. You're gonna wind up grounded so long that you're gonna become pale from a lack of sunlight. And it was just this moment when my father, who is not a yeller like me, he stuck his head in the room and he said, I guess that's what we get for buying her from the gypsies. Now, my father has a strange sense of humor, okay? So I looked to my mom to see if she laughed, but she did not laugh. In fact, she did not smile. What she did was give him a dirty look, exactly the kind of dirty look you would give to somebody who just broke a pact that you had made by giving up a big secret. I needed to be alone to process this, so I said, excuse me, I have to go to the bathroom. I'll make my bed in a minute. And I ran out, locked the bathroom door behind me, and I just breathed for a moment and thought, what does this mean? Oh my, I'm a gypsy. Like, that's so cool. I'd always been afraid that I was just this boring, bland, sort of suburbanite white girl, and now it turns out I'm exotic. I have a great heritage. Maybe I'll even be able to dance well someday. But then I think about what else he said. They bought me from the gypsies. So that means my real parents sold me like a slave or cattle. This does not feel good. But then I realized, well, maybe they had serious reasons. Maybe they were really scraping the barrel and they didn't know how they were going to feed me. And my rich American parents came around and swooped in at just the right time with their money waving in their faces and made them an offer they couldn't refuse. And maybe they've regretted it every single day since. Maybe they've spent the last 8 years looking for me. I got to be ready for if they come back for me. So I start reading up on Gypsy culture. I want to know everything that I would have learned if I'd just been with my real family the whole time. And so first I turn to my family's encyclopedia set, and I look up gypsies in there. And they have this very small entry that mostly focuses on different areas of the world that gypsies have come from, sort of like how India was originally the origin, and that's why they're kind of pictured as dark and swarthy. And even though I have blue eyes that are exactly the same as my brothers and my parents, I don't let that slow me down at all, because there could be a blue-eyed strain of gypsies out there that had me, and it'll make it easier for me if I go in search of them to find them, right? They also talk about sort of, gypsies having this traveling lifestyle. They're always moving around, never staying in one place too long. And I think, yeah, that feels right. That's why I'm bored in suburbia. Awesome. So then I decided to go a little deeper. The public library. This is one of my favorite places. My mom brings me there every week, and she just sort of sets me free. And so now I start badgering the librarians for anything they have on gypsy stuff. And frankly, there's still not that much. But they guide me to a few books that have gypsy characters in them. I gotta tell you, gypsies are not portrayed well, okay? They're given a short stick. Like, for example, this one book, which was a great book by Maeve Binchy, who's an Irish writer, but she had a character in it that was called a tinker, and he had an affair with this older married woman. Well, he was single, but she was married, and this older woman fell madly in love with him, and then he robbed her of like all her jewels and money and stuff before they left town. And when she walked in on him, he basically said, "I could never love someone like you. You're too old for me. You old foolish woman. I was just sort of, whining and dining you so I could access your place to steal." So they made him a very unsympathetic character, that good old Maeve did. But what I took from it, I sort of read between the lines. First of all, they'd said he was beautiful. So I'm like, gypsy's beautiful, check. Second of all, he was very smooth and smart. And okay, maybe a little cunning, but I tried to take all the positives reading between the lines. And the more I learned, the harder it got to do that, just because there's so much negative stuff. And then on my 10th year Christmas, a librarian gave me a gift. So they actually went in together and bought a book called Gypsy Folktales and gave it to me. It was the best thing ever. 80 different folktales from various gypsy groups around the world. And one of the things I really liked about it was that a lot of their folktales featured the devil as a character, because they sort of feared but also kind of admired the devil for his cunning, and some of their own people would sort of outwit the devil, and those were the best stories, right? So I felt a lot better prepared for when I ran into my real parents. And meanwhile, at school, things would go wrong really quickly if people insulted gypsies. For example, this one time I traded Tommy Lee the sandwich. He had a tuna fish sandwich, and he was trying to give it away. He didn't like tuna, apparently. So I said, cleverly, I have a peanut butter sandwich. I failed to mention the fact that it was made on rice cakes. And when he got it, we'd already swapped, and when he realized what he had, because peanut butter on rice cakes, truly dry, a horrible experience, but it was too late, no takes backsies, and so he said, "Man, you gypped me." And I said, "That is a racial slur against my people." And he said, "What people? People who make sandwiches on rice cakes? You weirdo." But anyway, Tommy aside, I just plodded on as best I could, kind of waiting my time and trying to behave myself so that my acting parents wouldn't get so upset with me that they'd try to take me back. And one day, when I was 13 years old, I was helping my mom wash dishes. And she sneezed, and I said, "God bless you." And she said, "Thank you." And I said, "Well, it's very important to bless people when they sneeze, because the gypsies believe that if you sneeze and no one blesses you, at that moment, the devil can enter your soul." My mother looked at me kind of funny, and she said, "You seem really obsessed with gypsies. Is there something I should know?" Now, we hadn't ever talked about the elephant in the room since my father let it slip, right? And I'd had it. Who was she fooling? I just decided this was the moment. So I said, "Yeah, maybe you've forgotten already, but I think I will always remember when my father, or acting father, told me that you'd actually bought me from the gypsies, and I need to be ready in case you return me to them like some kind of a defective toy." And she looked at me, and her mouth dropped open. And I thought she was going to start yelling like she always does, but she didn't. She said, "Oh, honey." She gave me this big hug, and she said, No. Your father just has a weird sense of humor. That was his way of joking. You're our child. I gave birth to you. You came 3 weeks early because you were so anxious to get into the world. You were born right on our anniversary, our 3rd anniversary, and you ruined perfectly good reservations at a restaurant. She said, but we would know that you're ours. Can't you tell that? And I felt a little better, I have to tell you. It sounded pretty convincing. And then she said, and besides, even if we had bought you from the Gypsies, we'd never return you because we love you too much. And she winked and walked out of the kitchen. Why? Why would she do that? To this day, I cannot be certain. Thank you.